without watching some of those clips there. But we have to because we have a full agenda. Halo Benson is an activist from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She drove 6 hours today to be here and has been supporting freedom for Julian Assange for over 8 years. She's here to share the experiences of her activism and her optimism for Julian's release. Halo?
Hi.
Hello.
I think that everybody here kind of starts in the same place, or is in the same place that I started in, where you see everything going on around you and you know that this is wrong and that we don't want war, all this stuff. And you've learned now, we've all come to realize how hard it is to actually get news anymore. You can't turn on the TV and watch news. On the TV is propaganda. I spend hours every day going to this source, that source, to get truthful information. And so this war on journalism, it is working. We are losing and they are winning. And when WikiLeaks first started releasing all this information, I thought, heads are gonna roll. People are gonna go to jail. War criminals are gonna go to jail. Wars will be stopped. We'll have a whole new thing. And that happened in some places, right? It happened in Iceland and it happened in Tunisia. And here, nothing happened except threats against the messenger. And so I wrote some letters and made some phone calls and talked to some friends, and still nothing happened. And then Julian took refuge in the embassy. I think that was the moment that I thought it's not enough to just complain about it, that you have to do something, that I have to do something so that my kids can have free speech and a right to a free press. It's an affront for me, to what it means to be an American. This is our First Amendment, and you don't have to be an American citizen, as far as I'm concerned, or any other American citizen I know, to be protected by this basic belief and basic constitutional right we have. We spread democracy everywhere. It's that important. When I first started standing on a street corner with a sign to free Julian, nobody knew what WikiLeaks was. I'm in Oklahoma. People would ask me, is that Wikipedia? No, it's not Wikipedia. They didn't even know. And over the years, it's a little bit at a time, just a little bit. People would stop and ask, and I would, show them some articles or explain, yeah, you know about this. Everybody had seen the collateral murder video, but then the news keeps going by, they don't dwell on it, people don't think about it. Now, when we're out in Tulsa, dozens and 50 or 60 cars that go by in any 2-hour period are honking on the horns, screaming out the windows. People understand now, because now everybody sees how hard it is to get truthful information on the news. Everybody understands now that it's all state propaganda. The world has gotten increasingly dangerous. More war. We're on the brink of nuclear war again. And I think that I'm hopeful that we will see change, and I'm hopeful that Julian will be free. I don't see how this could play out any differently. Every group that is in the United States now has more members than it's had previously. Every group is growing. And it's not just here. Obviously, in the United States, we were kind of the last to grow. It's international. We once had, I think 5 years ago, we had Candles for Assange, this big movement, and there was actually a researcher that was in Antarctica. So we had somebody on every continent on the planet lighting a candle and putting a candle in the window for Julian. And what started small has become really, really big. And I do hold out hope that it'll only continue to grow, and each and every one of you will sign some letters or fill out some postcards and talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your coworkers. Whatever issue brought you here today, whether it was Julian or the situation, genocide in Palestine, or being just on the edge of nuclear war, we wouldn't know about any of that if it weren't for the journalists. We wouldn't, this is about our right to know. And so I would ask that after this, if you guys could take some tangible actions at that table out there, I would super appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next guest is Gabriel Shipton. Gabriel and his father have been going around the country on behalf of Julian, and we're very proud to have him here in Kansas City. And tomorrow he is going to Columbia, where the Missouri University is sponsoring a forum for him, the School of Journalism. Gabriel traveled from London today, and instead of sleeping or eating, he went to the workout room in the hotel, which shows inner and outer strength and compassion go hand in hand, I think. He also said that the people we meet across the United States, they understand the importance of the case and what it means to press freedoms and the First Amendment. Shipton has noted the last 12 years of attacks on Julian's reputation, freedom, and human dignity have taken a toll on his brother. He's basically being crushed from the inside out. Welcome, Gabriel.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey. I feel like I should have had a sleep or something earlier now. I think that film was excellent, covered a lot of the ground about Julian's work and where things are at, the threats that this case poses to all of our rights to press freedoms. But I just want to maybe touch on something, in the positive and what leaks and these source documents can actually do. They can end wars. And there was a single cable that was among 250,000 of the diplomatic cable set. And this cable came from the US Embassy in Iraq back to the State Department in Washington, and it described an incident that happened in Baghdad where a group of soldiers entered a house and handcuffed the family inside that house, 7 of them, including women and children. And somehow or other, they ended up executing this entire family. And this cable details this event, these executions. And after the execution, this group of soldiers, not wanting to sort of face the crime that they had committed, they called in an airstrike to that house and totally obliterated that family off the face of the earth. Now this happened, and it was only through the release of this cable that this information was learned, and it wasn't ever reported on. It came out in a big batch of cables. It got glossed over, but eventually it was found, and it was found by the Iraqi government. And the Iraqi government, despite being a war-torn country, an occupied country for many, many years, despite having thousands of population dying and starving, they were able to read this cable and then summon up the courage to say to the US administration, was the Obama administration at the time, that the Iraqi government will not renew the status of forces agreement with the US Defence Forces. And what that meant was that those forces no longer had immunity inside Iraq. And what that led to was those troops being withdrawn from Iraq, and that country being able to change its path and change its course. So that's what Julian's work can do, and the effect that it can have, on normal people, on people who are suffering, on people who are suffering from injustice. I think it's really important that we remember that particularly at these very fraught times when decisions are being made that can affect future generations, that leaked information and publishers, courageous publishers, are so important for us to be able to make decisions about our institutions and society. I went to visit Julian last week inside Belmarsh prison. He's been there now 4.5 years. He's been held there solely in relation to this extradition to the United States, the Eastern District of Virginia. He's not convicted of any crime. He's in a maximum security prison, spends most of his time in his cell, and he's been worn down, crushed, as I said. He's been slowly crushed. Psychological torture is what the UN Rapporteur on Torture called it. But he's hanging in there. He's still has a flame inside him, a fighting flame. And I did speak to Niels Melser, who he said, even though Julian, he's changed from all of this, that he can be rehabilitated when he comes out. That there are places that he can go that will that are specifically for people who are recovering from this torture. What's happened, Halo spoke a little bit about this, thank you so much, Halo, for all your support as well. But what's happened around Julian's persecution, that sort of, I don't think his persecutors saw this coming, was this worldwide movement that's developed around the world, this fight to free Julian. And it started off, we had a lot of work to do, but me and my family are faces of the campaign, and there's now millions of people behind us. We have world leaders, I think all of the leaders in South America, Latin America, probably except for one or two, have come out and called on the US Department of Justice, called on the Biden administration to drop the charges against Julian. Basically every single Western democracy has a group, a bipartisan group within their parliament that is calling on these charges against Julian to be dropped. The Australian government, Julian's home, the Prime Minister there has said enough's enough, and he doesn't see what purpose is being served by Julian being kept in prison. In fact, 9 out of 10, there's a poll in Australia, 9 out of 10 Australians want the Biden administration to drop this. The feeling in Australia is so strong that it's beginning to affect the bilateral relations between Australia and the United States, who are extremely close allies and part of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing organisation or alliance. What else has happened is this sort of global race to the bottom in terms of press freedom and journalists being persecuted. What has happened to Julian is now being used as a template to go after other journalists. You had Jamal Khashoggi, for example, a Saudi Arabian journalist who was murdered inside a Turkish embassy. And there's many other authoritarian regimes that are using what's happened to Julian as a template. Just recently, Cheng Lei, who was an Australian journalist in China, was charged with espionage. Evan Gershkovich in Russia, charged with espionage. And this is all following on from this Unprecedented Espionage Act charge. I had to look up the other day how many times the Chinese Foreign Ministry raises Julian's issue when they're confronted over their human rights records, and it was 8 times over 2 years. And that's the foreign ministry in China saying, well, look what you're doing to Julian Assange. So it's this global race to the bottom that has started with Julian's persecution. I want to finish off, the Australian Prime Minister is going to be in Washington next week, so it's a very important time when the focus of the administration will be on this Australian-US relationship. I'll be travelling there. There is a letter that's been circulated, a bipartisan letter within the Congress, so it's got a Republican and a Democrat sponsor. We're asking everybody to call their representatives, ask them to sign on to this letter, a letter that's calling on the Biden administration to free Julian. So that's one thing that you can do, as well as going into the tables and seeing Halo afterwards, and taking an action there as well. Lastly, I wanted, you mentioned Daniel Ellsberg earlier, and I just wanted to remember him. I had the very amazing privilege of meeting Daniel with my father, Dan, as we affectionately call him, and just the huge hole that he's left behind in this community, in the whistleblower community. He was a real example to every whistleblower I've ever spoken to. I've spoken to many, and they always say, Dan Ellsberg was such a support, was such an example to us of a life that can be lived after whistleblowing. And I think that's really, really important, that people can see that when you blow the whistle, that there is life after that. You might feel some persecution, but you can still live a fulfilling and amazing life, just as Dan Ellsberg did. And Julian got permission to call Dan just before he died as well, so they were able to speak, which was very nice for Julian and Dan as well, I think. But anyway, thank you for all coming, and thanks again.
So now I think we would like Gabriel and Halo to come up, and our Q&A is going to be led by Judy Ansel. Let's give her a hand, because she was highly recommended for this job.
I'm supposed to share this mic with somebody.
Hi. Yeah, we're going to pass this mic around. So I want to just start by mentioning something very sad, which is the death of, on Wednesday, of Mary Lindsay, who was a member of All Souls. And I'm sure some of you know her. She was a great activist, and I just wanted to recognize that. So we're going to take questions at this point from you all. We'd like you to limit your question to 1 minute at most. You can come up to the microphone and ask it. You can line up if you like. And you can address your question to both Halo and Gabriel, or you can address it to one of them. Does anybody have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay, why don't you come up here?
Hello everybody, my name is Sebastian. I am one of the volunteers here at All Souls Unitarian. I do a lot of community outreach. I was asked to help Greenpeace the other day, or last week, and I wanted to ask a question. What is the difference between lobbying and sharing information, classified documents. What is the difference? Because we know lobbying is not right in the US. We also know we do have classified information in the US. I'm just new to this and I just was asked to share this information about this, and I did. So I'm just, as somebody new sitting in here, I want to know the difference.
Thank you.
Please.
So the difference between lobbying and
Leaking information.
Leaking information, classified information, gathering the information as intelligent.
Well, lobbying is actually just like a legal form of bribery.
Okay.
Like that's what lobbying is, right? Like I don't know a better way to explain what that is.
Okay.
That's vastly different than sharing information with the public. Even if it's classified information, we have a right to know what's being done with our tax dollars and in our name. That's a big difference.
yeah, I think lobbying, maybe lobbying is, it's part of the, I guess, the political process here in many other countries where you have, you lobby your representative for an outcome that you want. So you can, technically you can go to, say, Washington and you can knock on somebody's door, knock on your congressperson's door or senator's door and take your concerns to them. So that's, sort of part of the democratic or political process. A sometimes exploited part. If you can afford to pay people to lobby for you, then you have a outweighted representation of the political or democratic process. And then, I guess, leaking or classified material or publishing classified material is another.
The process of obtaining the classified material.
So usually the classified material is obtained by from a leaker. If you're a publisher, you have sources, and those sources work for the government. They will obtain classified material, and they leak it to the publisher. And so it's a sort of noble conspiracy between publishers and leakers to bring information from within governments or from within institutions to the public, information that's in the public interest. Unfortunately, institutions don't like telling anyone when they fuck up.
Right.
Yeah, so they usually try to hide it. And one way that they hide it is by classifying the documents or classifying the material. But it usually takes someone from within those institutions to bring that information out. And those are those courageous people, whistleblowers, who see something that they see as morally wrong or against the law, and take that, or in the public interest, and take that to journalists and publishers.
Thank you.
I would just add that if we had a transparent government, there would be no need for leakers at all.
Well, if we just had the opportunity for freedom of speech, there would be no reason for what's going on here.
Okay. Are there other questions? Yeah, Michael?
So, this isn't going to be that well formulated, but in my understanding, there's different authorities for murdering people within the civil codes. There's a Title 50 and a Title 10. And CIA, if the CIA is murdering people, it falls under one authority. And I think, if I understand it correctly, which I may not, that would trigger the Espionage Act. And if someone's just killing under military authority, it's not as a secret. So I'm wondering if that plays into this or if it's completely irrelevant.
Just so I understand the question, are you referring to Julian's charges under the Espionage Act, or the plot to murder Julian?
Not the plot. No, I'm not referring to the plot, just the charges. So there's some reason why he's been charged with the Espionage Act, and I'm wondering if that's because he exposed crimes that were committed under the authority that triggers that prosecution, or if it's just generally fell under the Espionage Act for the reasons.
No, so the Espionage Act is a 1917 law that was put into place to, go after people who were against World War I, and it's very broad and vague in its wording, which is why so many people are concerned about it. There's been lots of Espionage Act reform bills put forward by people like Ron Wyden or Ro Khanna, who people have put those forward. So, but in Julian's case, it's related to journalistic activity. So publishing, obtaining, and possessing what's called national defence information. That's how it's worded in the Espionage Act. So that's what he's been charged with. It's journalistic activity. The Espionage Act is a novel use of the Espionage Act. It's been tried to use it before in this way, but not on a publisher. So it's a novel use in that sense, and could be applied to any publisher. Like any newsroom in this country has classified material in it of some kind, national defence material in it of some kind. So
Gabriel, aren't they charging Julian with soliciting the information, not simply publishing it, and that's why it's a violation of
yes, so that's like the journalistic activity that I would refer to. It's up to journalists to communicate with their sources. So that's one aspect of it. Is that aspect of the journalistic activity?
Right, but they don't recognize that that's part of the work of a journalist.
Well, they're doing it's the express purpose of criminalising journalism. Yeah, that's why the ACLU and Freedom of the Press Foundation are all up in arms about this, is because it's actually criminalising journalistic
The act of collecting news.
Collecting, publishing, obtaining, possessing classified information, and then publishing it in the public interest.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
Well, this question may seem naive, but why do you think it is that neither Obama or Trump or Biden can find it within themselves, or could find it within themselves, just to pardon him and let him go?
Obama was at least smart enough to realize that he would look like a hypocrite. The New York Times couldn't go after Julian publicly. I don't know if we should have a discussion about the intelligence of Trump or the mental aptitude of Biden. The reality is, I think everybody here knows this, is these are puppets. They're not the power in Washington. Joe Biden doesn't make any decisions about anything. I don't think Trump, the powers that be, the people behind the scenes, the endless bureaucracy that is our government, Mike Pompeo, those people, John Bolton, those people, that they live for war. This has been working for them this whole time. They're not going to allow them, if there is any reasonable idea that they have, no, we can keep doing this. The public isn't rising up. People aren't paying attention. We can keep doing this. We can do another distraction. They're not going to pardon him or drop the charges. This works for them. This system is working exactly how it's designed to work, and it's working for them. Only massive public pressure will make them drop the charges. And even now, it's a matter for the Justice Department. It's the pass the buck, because none of them are actually running things, and neither are we. And that's the part that needs to be changed, because for the people, by the people, we need to be running things. That's the only way he's getting out of there.
Yeah, I agree. It's never going to come from the top down. It's going to be from the bottom up. Every other thing that changes, you don't expect these people to come up with their ideas themselves. They only do it through public pressure, and that's growing at the moment. Like this new congressional letter the bipartisan support in Congress and in the Senate. So hopefully the momentum continues and we can see some more pressure for these guys to do the right thing.
Thanks. Yes.
Yeah, this is sort of an inside baseball about American politics question. So if you knew about this, Gabriel, chime in on it. But anyway, so it's my understanding that the hypocritical attacks on Julian Assange are sort of helped lead to the Ukrainian war because the well, somebody in Russia, maybe the Russian government, I'm not sure, hacked into the Democratic Party emails, right? And sent those to, isn't that how it happened? Sent those to WikiLeaks? No, that's not how it happened. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so Russiagate has been debunked thoroughly for a couple years now, but we think that the leaker of the DNC emails was Sutherich, who was murdered in a robbery where nobody stole anything.
Okay.
But it's this is the thing. When my daughter was 13, I found cigarettes in her backpack. And I confronted her with the cigarettes in her backpack. And she went on a tirade about how I had no right to look in her backpack. That's what that argument is. The truth is the truth no matter who tells it.
Right. So, okay, maybe it wasn't Dorsey's, I don't really know, but WikiLeaks published the DNC emails which exposed the corruption of the Democratic Party in election interfering with their own primaries. Wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they were the Pied Piper strategy. They were pumping up Trump, and they were getting their media friends to pump up Trump because Hillary thought she'd be able to beat him easily.
Okay, but that was all blamed on Russia, right?
Yeah, but
About the whole Russian, right, I agree with you. That was all blamed on Russia, and so that became a attack on Russia. And did that xenophobic attack on Russia by the Democratic Party primarily? I mean, Russia was blamed for attacking American elections, right? And
well,
I think it's a bit of a long,
Hillary
I think it's a little bit of a long bow to draw. I get where you're going, but I think it's a little bit of a long bow. I mean, what those emails exposed was, conspiracy within the Democratic National Committee to rob the nomination from Bernie Sanders and give it to Hillary Clinton, and then all this debunked stuff. It's been debunked time and time again after all of that. But I think it's a bit of a long bow to look from 2016 and say it's got something to do with the Ukraine war. I don't think it's that.
Can I interject? Because I kind of think it does. In 2014, we did a coup in Ukraine. And so when Hillary and the DNC people thought, spread the Russiagate thing, make it look like Russia, I think that she did not conceive of a world where she could lose, especially not against Donald Trump. I mean, it was stellar failure. And so it does stand to reason that they were setting up the spin, but I don't think anybody buys it now. It was all lies.
Well,
Get another question.
okay, one more question, please. For you, do you think that contributed to the anti-Russian feeling which justifies the escalation in Ukraine against Russia, which led to the current war?
I think with some people it might, but it's all propaganda. And the reality is that those leaks are not anything that Julian's being charged with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those leaks aren't actually the beef they have with him.
Right, that's illegal. Right.
But
Thank you.
Didn't they use those leaks as part of their campaign to make him unpopular and discredit him? Yeah. That was after the listening, right? Yeah. Margaret.
Quick questions. One, you mentioned how propaganda has grown so much. What's the evidence? I mean, there's probably always been a lot of propaganda in our press. What would you and other people cite as evidence that propaganda has grown more intense in the last few years? That's one question. And then, Julian, I was just wondering if you could touch briefly on how this has affected your family over the years.
It must be growing because Obama had to get rid of the law that made it illegal for our government to propagandize its own citizenry. There wouldn't have been a need to do that if they weren't propagandizing their own citizenry.
I think there's also there's polling I think that they do every year in media trust and how people the trust in media and trust in corporate media, and I think last year for the first time it was below 50%. And so if you follow that polling, I think that's an interesting phenomenon that people's trust in these media corporations is now, at its lowest that it's ever has been, below 50%. And what that's sort of led to, I think that's really interesting in the US is this blooming of independent media and more independent voices who are using the internet as, what it was supposed to be used for as this decentralized information or decentralized publishing tool. So I see that directly as a part of Julian's legacy and part of WikiLeaks' work. WikiLeaks introduced what's called scientific journalism, or I think Julian coined that phrase, where you could, because for the first time the leaks weren't trapped in these media corporations, they were released on WikiLeaks. So you could go and read an article and you could hold up the source document next to it, similar scientific data, and you could compare the article to the source document, and you could see exactly where the bias was in those articles. So I think this sort of trust in media that's been going down over time, I think, is a direct correlation between the way that WikiLeaks worked and those sort of numbers. But our family, we're all working to free Julian, to keep him alive, support him while he's in prison, as well as fighting to get him out. And this is I probably do this 80% of my time now. It's basically my full-time job. So same with my father, same with Julian's wife Stella. That's our life now. And my daughter wears Free Julian t-shirts to school and things like that. So it's we're all working to keep Julian alive through supporting him while he's in prison, but also advocating for him.
Okay, we're going to take one more question, then I have a question. So do you have a question? Because Michael's already had one.
This in no way is a rhetorical question, and it comes from having immense respect for the noble role of whistleblowers. When and why would not returning and facing the court be a solution that could free him? I can imagine the difficulty of winning it, but it seems there's something noble about facing your persecutor, your prosecutor, and demonstrating in court where there may be a mass of people that would then realize the nobleness of this action.
There is no defense against the Espionage Act. They're saying you published these things, and we all know that he did publish these things. So there's no, he did publish these, he did what journalists do. He hasn't actually committed any crime under American law at all, not one single crime. So he's not facing the music, but in the espionage, with the Espionage Act specifically, there is no public, he can't say, well, this was in the public interest for people to know. They don't allow you to have that defense. It's a very black and white, did you publish these things? Yes, you did. Go to jail for 175 years. It isn't that thing where you get to beat them back with the, I didn't do anything wrong. They know he didn't. And that's the biggest part, as confused as the public might be. Our government knows exactly what they're doing, and he's committed no crimes under our law or Australian laws. He's also not American, so he shouldn't have to come back like Two-Face. But there is no defense of the Espionage Act.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think the film said as well that if Julian were to get a fair trial here, of course he would come here and fight, of course. But just from where even where he's charged out of the Eastern District of Virginia, as John Kiriakou, who fought a case there, said that the jury pool is drawn from the defence industry contractors, CIA, NSA, their family members, and they select this location deliberately. Usually, if you're extradited, the charges, you fight the charges when you in the place you arrive. So a lot of them are fought in New York, but this is specifically placed in the Eastern District of Virginia because it has a 100% conviction rate related to these espionage charges. So there is no possible way for Julian to ever get a fair trial here, even with these the CIA spying on his lawyers and doctors while he was in the embassy. I spoke to a journalist who works in that court, and they said, "Oh, you know what they do? They have tainted evidence and they have clean evidence, and they just separate the piles, and only the clean evidence goes in. So can't even bring those things into the hearing. So there's just no way that he would ever get a fair trial. So that's why he has to fight. That's why he has to fight the extradition, which it's his legal right to do as well."
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for hearing my question. Not really, and this is really to anyone. We've recently seen some signs of life from the New York Times and the corporate press in regards to this as the extradition intensifies, or the drive for extradition intensifies. Is that something that you see continuing? Obviously, they kind of see themselves now as potentially in the line of fire if this does go through. But is that something that they're in contact with you all about, or that you see as a ongoing, or is that just kind of like a one time? Because it's not.
We want them to do more.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're always trying to push them to do more, figure out ways for them to do more. I think that they could be doing a lot more than they are.
Yeah.
There's still quite a bit of, I don't know how to call it, resistance, and not just from the publishers, but from journalists within these institutions as well. There's some good ones, but a lot of them are, they don't like Julian. So, but yeah, I think there's more of an understanding now that this is a threat to their power. And so there has been some efforts, but yeah, we're always pushing them. We're trying to figure out ways how to get them to report on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now I have a question, kind of to cap it off. And that is, if you, especially Halo, if you would talk more about your strategy. I assume your target is the Biden administration to get them to drop the charges. But could you talk more about how we're going to get there, and whether you have a timetable or anything like that?
Oh, yesterday would be good. The tactic for, there's in the U.S. the fight is different in different countries. In Australia, their citizen is being targeted. In the UK, the Magna Carta is in danger of being completely trampled on. Here, it's the First Amendment. So the tactics are different, and the charges were brought under the Trump administration. If Biden had any intention of rolling that back, he would have. So to me, I think it's make it untenable for them to keep ignoring this, because most people in our government haven't spoken against Julian. They've just sat silent. They've just sat silent and, played along with the distractions. When that becomes untenable, when every time their intern answers the phone, or anytime they play the messages, or anytime they check their mail, when we're there, just consistent, tangible, easy actions, the cost of the stamp, the time taken of a phone call, when it becomes untenable for them to remain silent, that's when we're going to see a different response.
So can you talk about like specific congressional targets and who you think is movable that we should focus on?
They're all movable depending on who's moving, but we We have the Rashida Tlaib's letter, and now the one with, co-sponsored with Thomas Massey in Kentucky. We already have bipartisan groups within our, I mean, in Missouri, you have Cori Bush. She signed Rashida Tlaib's letter. She has spoken out for Julian. She's also spoken out against Merrick Garland for some of his other bad decisions or unlawful decisions. She's very vocal, so you do have that going for you here.
Yeah, except she's St. Louis. What about here?
I don't know your guy here. Is that Emmanuel?
Emmanuel.
Yeah. Make it untenable. I mean, it can't hurt to make the phone calls. It hasn't, but they'll be emboldened. When one stands up, now that you have somebody in your state that is saying, hey, let's do something, it becomes slightly easier for the other person to stand up too. Like Julian said, courage is contagious.
So tomorrow, everybody, you know who to call? If you live in Missouri, you call Cleaver. If you live in Kansas, you call Sharice Davids. If you live in Kansas, you call Cleaver too. And if you live in Missouri, you call Sharice Davids. Because those are about the only two who probably would have any conscience about this.
Yeah, you can ask them to sign McGovern Massey letter. Yeah, that's the.
What's the letter called again?
It's McGovern Massey, so it's McGovern.
McGovern Massey.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, do you have any?
Yes. Okay, the curly girlie that asked the question. Her, I'd like to, I would really like to start a group in Missouri. I came from Oklahoma. We've got 2 groups there. But I think that we really need to start a group of volunteers here. And so anybody that's even remotely interested, you can come grab a little trifold. It's got my phone number on it. But also, if you can on the way out, if this is something that's important to you, sign the letter to Cori Bush, fill out some postcards for your representative, take some blank ones home, whatever you're willing to do, tangible actions. And the most important thing, though, like talk to your mom and dad, talk to your brothers and sisters, your coworkers. It's gonna matter for every single one of us. It's gonna take all of our voices.
Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Chris. Okay, give them all a round of applause.